Zurarah Ibn A'yan is one of the most famous and prolific Shi'i narrators of hadith. The Shia consider him one of the closest companions of Imam al-Baqir and Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq. There is consensus among Shi'i scholars to accept Zurarah's narrations without question. His narrations are all regarded authentic above any form of criticism. The Shi'i scholar Ahmad al-Najashi writes about him. Zurarah Ibn A'yan is the leader of his companions of his era. He was a qari, faqih and theologian. He is such a prolific narrator that the corpus of the Shi'i tradition revolves around him. More aptly, Zurarah is one of the chief architects of Shi'ism. The Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Abul Qasim al-Khu'i in his book Mu'jamu Rijal al-Hadith informs us that Zurarah is among those who narrated from Abu Ja'far. The number of reports that he narrates from Abu Ja'far reach 1,236. The total number of narrations reported from Zurarah amount to 2,094. Abdul Hussein Sharafuddin al-Musawi quotes a narration ascribed to Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq in his book al-Muraja'at. My father entrusted them with safeguarding the lawful and prohibited matters. They were the custodians of his knowledge. Today they are my faithful confidants and true friends of my father. They are the stars of my Shia, alive or dead. Through them Allah dispels all innovation. They protect the religion from the lies of innovators and the distortion of the extremists. One would imagine that individuals showered with such high praise would be the ultimate paragons of virtue and honesty. After all, they appear to be the true custodians of the heavenly religion who managed to achieve that which even those divinely appointed failed to achieve, protecting the religion from the lies of innovators and the distortion of the extremists. They were successful when even the brave and formidable lion of Allah, Ali bin Abi Talib, failed. Instead of purifying the religion by correcting the wrongs of those who preceded him and outlawing their wayward practices, Asadullah al-Ghalib Ali bin Abi Talib was sadly forced to follow the path of the Khulafa before him and uphold their practices. Ni'matullah al-Jazairi writes in his book Al-Anwar al-Nu'maniyah, when Amirul Mu'mineen assumed the seat of Khilafah, he was unable to reveal the true Quran and hide the other one. In so doing, there is a display of repulsiveness to those before him. Similarly, he failed to prevent Salatul Duha and was also unable to institute the various kinds of mut'ah of Hajj and mut'ah of women. The exaggeration in the narration of Abdul Hussein is quite evident and is an obvious ploy by the fabricators to lend credibility to their forgery. When faced with charges of lies and forgery, the Shi'i successors of Ibn Saba resort to shrewd tactics to defend the narrators of their tradition. In a desperate attempt to mask reality, they resort to denial, even if the evidence be glaring before their eyes. Abdul Hussein demonstrates this desperation when he denies all accusations against Zurarah and company when he says, "We cannot find any trace of evidence supporting what has been attributed to each of Zurarah ibn A'yan, Muhammad ibn Muslim, Mu'min al-Taq and their peers, despite sparing no effort to study these accusations. Instead, it amounts to nothing more than animosity, injustice, prejudice, slander and false allegation." This is an ancient exit strategy of the Shia. Left without an escape, they resort to denial. Let us now enlighten Abdul Hussein and his fellowship of scholars who are unable to find any trace of evidence supporting what has been attributed to each of them, namely that they were frauds, liars and fabricators who were openly condemned by the infallible Imams. Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq asked one of his Shia, "When last did you see Zurarah?" "I haven't seen him for a few days," came the reply. Imam Ja'far then said, "Do not concern yourself with him. If he falls ill, do not visit him. And if he dies, do not attend his janazah." The narrator, astonished by the Imam's harsh words, asked, "Zurarah?" He was utterly amazed that the Imam would pronounce such condemnation for Zurarah. Zurarah, who had portrayed himself to be a close confidant of the Imam. Imam Ja'far responded, "Yes, Zurarah. زرارة شر من اليهود والنصارى ومن قال إن الله ثالث ثلاثة." Zurarah is worse than the Jews and the Christians and those who say that Allah is but one of a trinity. Compare the damaging remarks of the infallible Imam with the hyperbole of Abdul Hussein and his companions who desperately attempt to do away with these narrations. The Ahlus Sunnah have always rejected the absurdities and fabrications of these liars and forgers. It is far-fetched that the noble family would have uttered such profanities as has been ascribed to them by these impostors. The Ahlul Bayt made public their disgust in the strongest terms, absolving themselves from the likes of these liars. Imam Ja'far would say, La'ana Allahu Zurarah, may the curse of Allah be upon Zurarah. Repeating it 3 times, signaling him out for fabricating against him, saying, Kadhaba alayya wallahi, by Allah, he has lied upon me. Imam Ja'far also said, no one has brought innovation into Islam as Zurarah has. May Allah curse him. It is a fundamental tenet of Shi'i faith that the Imam is infallible. The Imam is the sole source of guidance in all matters of life, whether it be religious, political or social. No one has the authority to render his own opinion in these matters, let alone belie the Imam. This tenet of the Shia doctrine was obviously lost on Zurarah, yet another sign of his impudence. Unless he was one of the architects of this doctrine without the knowledge of the Imam. If that were the case, he would be at liberty to serve his own interests by putting any statement into the mouths of the Imams. It has been reported that once a group of the Shia were discussing matters of halal and haram. Amongst them was Zurarah. He then forwarded his own personal opinion regarding a matter on which he was asked. Is this based on your own opinion or from narration? He haughtily replied, I know better. Are not some opinions better than narration? Today, the Shia harp on the necessity to follow the Ja'fari faith, which is in fact the legacy of individuals such as Zurarah, claiming that no other opinion has validity before that of the Imam. It is obvious that Zurarah did not hold the same view as they do. The next narration puts things into greater perspective and will illustrate the degree to which Zurarah regarded his own opinion better than others. Isa ibn Mansur, Abu Usama al-Shiham, and Ya'qub al-Ahmar narrate. We were sitting in the company of Imam Ja'far when Zurarah entered and asked, Hakam ibn A'yan has reported from your father that he said, one should read Maghrib other than in Muzdalifah during Hajj. Imam Ja'far answered, my father never said this. Hakam has lied upon my father. Zurarah then left saying, I do not think that Hakam lied upon his father. Here we begin to see that Zurarah is one of the architects of the Shia faith, whose opinion is so weighty, so much better, that it even surpasses that of the Imam. We believe the Ahlul Bayt to be pious and devout men of Allah, who were true in action and speech. They never uttered anything contrary to the Quran, nor did they go contrary to the true deen followed by the majority of the Ummah, known as the Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. The honorable Imams of the Ahlul Bayt tried their best to admonish these deviants, but sadly their pleas fell upon deaf ears. Abdurrahman al-Qasir narrates, Imam Ja'far said to me, go to Zurarah and Buraid and ask them, what is this bid'ah you have innovated? Do you not know that the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, every innovation is deviation? When this message reached Zurarah, he replied nonchalantly, he has granted me ability and he does not know. As for Buraid, he said, I will never retract what I have said, ever. The lack of remorse shown by Zurarah even after having been exposed by the Imam hints to a much sinister agenda, one whose sole purpose was the destruction of deen. Sentiments which were echoed by the words of the Imam when the progeny of A'yan was mentioned in his presence. He said, by Allah, the progeny of A'yan does not intend except to gain supremacy. The repeated disparagement and unmasking by Imam Ja'far left its mark on Zurarah, and he began to voice his dislike for the respected Imam. Ibn Maskan relates that once Zurarah said in a small gathering, may Allah have mercy upon Abu Ja'far, referring to Imam al-Baqir, the father of Imam Ja'far. As for Ja'far, verily my heart has turned away from him. Ibn Maskan relates that he inquired what had led Zurarah to make such a statement. He was told, Ja'far has exposed his lies. This is what has prompted him to say this. Zurarah in turn resorted to discrediting Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq and would say, "I used to regard Ja'far to be more knowledgeable than what he actually is." However, the lies continued and the fabrication factory was not shut down. The unwary, unscrupulous and foolish continued to swallow these deceits. And if ever any intelligent person questioned this legacy or confronted Zurarah with the damning statements of the Imam, Taqiyya was always there as a lifeline. The renowned muhaddith Shamsuddin al-Dhahabi relates the narration of Ibn Sammak in his Mizan. "I set out to perform Hajj and Zurarah ran into me at Qadisiyah. He told me he had a favor to ask, and when I asked what it was, he said, 'When you meet Ja'far ibn Muhammad, then pass on my greetings and ask him if I am of the inmates of Jahannam or residents of Jannah.' I refused to do this favor for him, but he insisted. 'He has knowledge of this,' he said, and continued to urge me until I submitted. When I met Ja'far ibn Muhammad and conveyed the message of Zurarah, he replied, 'He is from the inmates of Jahannam.' This alarmed me, as how could he have knowledge of this? So I asked, 'How do you know this?' He replied, 'Only the inmates of Jahannam would claim that someone has knowledge of such matters.' When I returned home and informed him that Imam Ja'far had said he is from the inmates of Jahannam, he replied, 'He practiced taqiyya with you.' These narrations establish the unreliability of Zurarah and the range of his deceptions, and it is the narrations of this individual as well as other fabricators such as Jabir al-Ju'fi, Hisham ibn al-Hakam, Abu Basir, etc. that is now called the madhab of the Ahlul Bayt, which the Shia so desire that we follow. The reality, however, is that they have taken their faith from known liars, fabricators and heretics, condemned by the Ahlul Bayt. Most certainly, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq has spoken the truth. We, the Ahlul Bayt, are truthful and have not been spared from liars who fabricate against us and tarnish our honesty with their falsehood.